Hello, fellow Jasmy Army, or Jasmy Navy, as Darius Magruder would refer to our community. But the key thing is that we have a very, very strong and passionate community. And if anything, it's not a cult where we just follow a fearless leader from a particular meme coin. Not the case at all. The main true fact of the matter is we have some strong utility with Jasmy, and we're going to point out a few key elements on why we will progress here soon going into the future with just that true innovation. So let's jump into today's outline and recognize at the beginning a few key players that are part of our community. What I would like to refer to as some of the unsung heroes. So let's go ahead and start things off with, for instance, Mr. Mentalect here. He's been posting quite a bit from Jasmy content to bring it to us. So he states Binance FUD didn't destroy Jasmy, but it made the Jasmy community stronger. CZ touched the third rail, Jasmy Army. Absolutely. 110%. Now, how did the community become stronger? Well, people like this. And I want to give a special shout out to this guy. You can follow him at Yanislav, and that is Yanislav Iliev. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, sir. So I decided to follow this guy, and a lot of you guys have also been following him as well. Why so? Because you know what? There's some unsung heroes as far as the community is concerned when it comes to Jasmy. And he has a community update, and I want to share this with you guys. It's a very important community update. This was posted earlier today. He says, here is the Jasmy community letter, which he sent to Binance today. Retweet and tag. Absolutely. I've already done that. And, you know, like it says, tag Binance and CZ. Our voice must be heard. All right, so let's jump into this for a brief moment. So what you're going to see here is this outline of this community letter to just that, Binance in itself. And he originally posted some of this, I believe, either yesterday or the day before, and it caught a lot of attention. So he's made tremendous progress with this, and we'll get into a little bit more of, you know, how he reached customer support and all that. So, like it says right here, to whom it may concern, in Binance Innovation Zone team, I'm writing to follow up on our previous communication regarding case ID 104719011, which was handled by CS Fernando Q. I have important information to share that substantiates our claim that Jasmy does not belong in the Binance Innovation Zone. During our previous discussion, it was clear that there may have been some misunderstandings or incomplete information regarding the true potential and value of Jasmy. He believes it is crucial to shed light on these aspects to ensure a comprehensive evaluation of the token's rightful place within the Binance ecosystem. And there is a lot that's mentioned here. Like he's requesting a reevaluation of the decision to place Jasmy in the innovation zone. He gives reasons for that, right? The commitment of the team, level and quality of the development and activity. You know, he points out, for instance, smart contract stability. You can view this all for yourself as well. He goes down into other things. He has an outline. He, you know, says we should all delve into the impressive development of Jasmy. And yeah, let's face it, you know, backed by an official, you know, information of links and just all sorts of real world examples, such as, you know, the personal data lockers or what they're trying to solve in blockchain, Web3, especially where Japan is going with that Web3 white paper. So it's one thing to recognize, you know, research, and there's another thing to take it to the next level by providing, let's face it, some of these guys from Binance who may have just not done this at all when it comes to DD, due diligence. Gives you examples of trading volume, liquidity. The whole point is he went through a ton of time to put this together, you know, and that's what's key. You know, when we come on camera and say, you know, things like, hey, we're for Jasmy and so on, you know, one thing I've always appreciated is that with Jasmy, there's a lot of content creators and people even on Twitter who provide information, not just on video, but through actual, you know, threads, research, you name it. You know, like this right here from the Slow Miss team, the actual audit and how it passed, right? You know, Flutters want to say this thing's a scam and so on. All right, I guess let's just dismiss the entire Slow Miss audit system and so on, right? So, you know, you see all this, it checks marks itself. I mean, my thing is this, you know, a lot of times we may not understand why they put this into that particular innovation zone. And as we mentioned, it is not a complete delisting of Jasmy. You can still purchase it for trading and so on Binance. Mentions like the commitment of the team to the project. I mean, he has a ton of information here. I mean, look at this. I mean, you know, like I myself am an instructor, also a teacher, and I could totally appreciate somebody who took the time. You know, this to me is like basically like an essay, and you know, this is at the collegiate level, basically. You know, and he did such a well researched outline, right, on his paper, if you will. You know, if you were my student in my classroom, I would have given you an A plus and then some. Absolutely. So I mean, it's just again, you know, people are saying, you know, horror's not real. Well, there's some pictures. I know people want video. I get that. And I will agree with some people when it comes to some of the objectionable things about horror. Like horror, if you happen to watch this at some point, everybody's requesting they want you to have a blue check mark. We want, you know, maybe you need some help in regards to PR and stuff like that. That's not a bash on horror. But I understand some of the complaints. And you know, at the end of the day, we should be objectionable on anything, right? Give constructive feedback on anything, you know, and then use that constructive feedback and react upon that. But is that going to, you know, be enough for me to want to dump my position in Jasmy? No, not at all. So again, you know, all these pictures, even this lady here, by all means, don't contact that lady. She's just a lady that was hired by the team. And I get it. Some people are saying, you know, oh, well, you know, it should have been Hara instead of her who answered all the questions. Guess what, guys? At the end of the day, it's what's reported to us. Maybe something else happened in that regard that we should take more of a look into. Which brings me to the next segment. And of course, guys, you could go more and more into this, and he did a great job with all this. So, Yanoslav, man, you rock. You are an unsung hero of the Jasmy community, to say the least. So, what I want to show you is a little bit more of this. And of course, you know, here's his original letter, you know, reaching out to an actual person, of course. So he was doing a follow up, and it was really awesome. I saw a lot of people, even myself, I was wanting to recognize him and so on. So please give Yanoslav a follow. He can be followed at YANISSLAV on crypto Twitter. All right. What I want to do now is I want to show you guys a little bit more of what we have here. And I'm actually going to jump back to that post from Brian here in a bit. So I'm going to move this one up. So remember we just showed you that particular lady that was doing all the presentation for, you know, Jasmy at this Tokyo event, right? A lot of people from even the community and even the Flutters were like, you know, it should be Hara. It should be Hara. Well, guess what? He also apparently was there. So Hara was there. We just didn't get the pictures. We didn't get all the video. Now, of course, this is where some of the criticism is going to be, where they're going to, you know, even our own community are going to say, well, then that should have been handled at the same time it showed that lady. And I would agree with you, right? This is probably where you need some PR help. Let's just be honest. So straight from Hara, this is actually posted, I guess today, because I, you know, kind of forgot today is actually the 14th. But anyway, check this out. He says, thank you for coming to Japan for the Blockchain Expo. He had a session with Mr. Hatsuzawa, director of BitTrade, Global Japan, about the token market in Japan. Next up is Teams Web3 Summit. We showed you guys just a little bit in regards to what's coming up in that, I should say. But here's some more pictures. And let's jump into this for a brief moment. So, you know, this guy in the background, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I forgot the guy's name, but you could kind of say that, like, you know, this is like Hara's homeboy, you know? He went with him, as we know, to Hong Kong, right? There's Hara. He's literally at this exact same one that you saw the other particular lady who was hosting and, I should say hosting, but passing out, brochures and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, she's a contractor. She is, not a person who knows a lot about, for instance, Jasmy, but she's there to do work to pass out the information. It's kind of like these things happen even here locally in the United States. I mean, how about this? I'm a business, right? Just think about this for a minute, all right? I understand a lot of the negativity and the constructive feedback, right? But let's say, for instance, I'm a business, okay? And I just opened up, for instance, here's a great example, right? I own a brand new mom and pop IT shop, right? For fixing people's computers, right? That's obviously a popular thing. And I get a whole bunch of flyers made, right? Because for one, I mean, you can only do so much on the internet as far as advertising. Like maybe I just want to blanket an area with flyers. Now we understand that there's only going to be so much retention. A lot of people are going to throw away the flyers. But here's the point I'm trying to make. I hire a kid, right, to go out, and the kid probably appreciates having like a summer job of being able to hand out a bunch of flyers. I get him like 10,000 flyers printed, and I say, hey, you know what? I want you to blanket this whole radius of this part of town that's close to our computer shop because there's not a lot of computer shops in this area. Okay, no problem. Is that kid gonna know about PCI Express? Is he going to know about, an i9 Extreme processor? Is he going to know the difference between, a solid state drive and a 7200 RPM, SATA drive? No, probably not, right? He's just there to do a job, and that's hand out flyers. That's the way I look at with Jasmy. That lady, she had a job to do. She's a nice looking, sweet lady to present, a smiley face and say, "Here's Jasmy. Here's some brochures." Hence, why she was passing out the brochures. That's why that was her purpose, if you will. And for all we know, there might have been a scheduling conflict. Maybe they couldn't get anybody else there. But here's the facts, guys. There's Hara, plain as day, along with his homeboy, right, at this event. Okay? So he was there. Funny how information passed in the negative light, to say the least. All right, a little bit more from this particular event. And you see him, and there's people engaged, wanting to know more about Jasmy. And that is probably one of the most impressive pictures I've seen. These are the type of pictures I want to see. This, to me, is very encouraging. Are they all there saying, oh yeah, blatant rug pull? No, maybe they want to learn a little bit more about the Internet of Things. Maybe they want to learn a little bit more about personal data lockers. Maybe they want to learn more about the data democratization coin. Or maybe they also want to just flat out, find out a little bit more about what the heck Jasmy is and why it's labeled as the Bitcoin of Japan. But either way, there was some engagement here, clear as day. And that is a big win for community and, for instance, this investment that we hold with the likes of Jasmy. Now, I want to state this for the record. None of this is, of course, financial advice. But for me, as a person that holds Jasmy, I become that much more interested in what has been happening lately in light of the FUD. And I basically responded to the FUD and took advantage of the negative things that tanked the price as a win for me personally to add to my portfolio. So I picked up a third bag of Jasmy, and I'm glad I did that. So I want to jump back to Mr. Brian's outline that he has right here. And basically speaking, it's this right here. And did you know about some of these key things that were recently released? Probably not. And that's okay. That's why we like to bring this to you guys' attention. So Brian says, great press release on Jasmy once again. Keep them coming, brother. Right? And this is, I believe, from... Let me see who this is. Well, I don't have it tagged, but anyway. Tony Peacock. My bad. I agree. Definitely keep them coming. Let's blow this up. And if anything, I'll blow it up even more to make it bigger for you guys. All right, so Brian originally It says, yeah, keep them coming. Here it is a little bit bigger. Decentralized data, NFT tokenization, and crypto to fuel Web3 in 2023. This was posted originally from Link Daddy on the 8th. Jasmy is one of the emerging platforms using this data decentralization model for Web3. The platform enables people to trade data with consent. And again, that's the whole thing. Think about, Facebook, Google, things like that. Those disclaimers that nobody reads just to freely hand over all your data, right? But that's where they make all their, targeted marketing through our data. I'll start talking about a Weber barbecue grill, how I need to have a new barbecue grill. And all of a sudden, I am plagued with constant nonstop ads about a Weber barbecue grill. Why? Because I mentioned it to a friend as the friend came over to visit. Hey man, I'm thinking about getting a new Weber barbecue grill. Oh, okay. Oh, then all of a sudden I get saturated, with all these ads. It's ridiculous. But that's the cost. People want to say that Google and Facebook or Meta, and all these things, they're free. They're not free. There's always a price on anything. Technically speaking, the only thing I could think of that's free in this world, if you really want to think about it, is if you go to a garage sale and they have a free box. Okay, maybe that's free. But technically speaking, you still had to walk over to there, or you had to drive over to there. There's some kind of cost. Nothing is for free. Anyway, enough about that. All right. United States, May 8th, 2023, Ein Presswire. Shout out to Ein Presswire. They featured CTN. I thought that was really cool. They featured where it says, Jasmy, the Internet of Things. So we're not sponsored by Ein Presswire, but, hey, salute to you. Thank you for recognizing us. The current World Wide Web, or 2.0, seems perpetually high on data sharing and omnipresent social networks. This ecosystem has a clear bias toward big corporates such as Google and Meta, like I mentioned. In comparison, Web3 sounds a bit revolutionary, and it does. Like, oh my gosh, I know some of you guys, you don't hold quant. You need to check out the quant video about how basically, they're like the key player of Web3, and that's another thing. But anyway, but yes, it does sound revolutionary. It's giving people control by decentralizing data and restricting manipulative advertising for content creators and the real doers behind the art, music, and any other product created with real skills. The emergence of Web3 means a chance to profit directly with lesser interference and control of platforms and agencies that tend to influence markets and make apps manipulative. Now, make apps manipulative. I hate to use this word manipulative, but we've seen some things recently, like the farmers commercial. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, right? Especially with the manipulation of Binance. I don't care what anybody says. There was definitely some kind of manipulation there. They are a power player that is reacting based on market conditions and so on, and they're seizing that opportunity. They are not a non-for-profit. They are a company that wants to do just that, make a profit, right? There's an old saying, and you guys probably heard it long before, the current times. Probably heard it from your pops, if you have a pop. And that basically is, it's a dog-eat-dog world. No, not Snoop Dogg. Dog-eat-dog world, right? Is Binance a perfect example of that dog-eat-dog approach? I think so. I think there's still something there with that. So it says, for consumers, there is a promise of more sovereignty and security with Web3, and 2023 might be the year when this digital transformation moves beyond its nascency and is endorsed by business people and brands. When you saw some of these people show up to this event, right, you better believe there's some big players there. And how do we know that? Well, in a previous video, we did report that this particular conference was, for institutional investors and so on, organizations, was exclusive to them. So that's big. We always talk about, we got to have regulatory, framework to get that clarity where we can get the institutional money coming in. Also keep in mind, this is Japan. And in Japan, they really recognize, institutional adoption and so on, and that clarity that's really needed, right? That's why I feel as though Jasmy could very well be the one that gets us to the promised land first. And I'll stand by that 100% all the way. Look at this quote. One of the big innovations of Web3 are tokens, both fungible and non-fungible assets that are inherently unique, says Avaya Lighton, vice president and analyst at Gartner, about the tokenization of real-world assets such as real estate using blockchain technology. It is common to find people explaining tokenized ownership by referring to celebrities who have released memorabilia and, for instance, collectibles, NFTs. But this is just one of many applications of tokenized ownership. As you can see here in the picture, you have Hide Kiko Kakinuma, if I pronounced that wrong. He's executive officer of Jasmy, right? And it was really awesome that Iron Press Wire features him, whether it is, reposted or reshared from LinkDaddy, right? You got to admit, Iron Press Wire, they seem to recognize something in regards to Jasmy, and that's really, really cool, right? And at the end of the day, it's decentralized data, NFT tokenization, and like I mentioned before, in crypto to fuel Web3 in 2023. There's still money to be made in 2023. Some people are still stating that, no, this is still a crypto winner and so on. I get that, but even, and I know maybe some of you guys don't want me to mention Pepe. I never invested into it and so on, but you know what? Obviously, there's money to be made in 2023, whether it's Pepe or whether it's Jasmy, you name it. Recognize the opportunities. The reason why I put so much focus on Jasmy is because I like the idea of what they have moving forward with their utilities. And on top of that, I still think Jasmy is one of the most impressive risk to reward ratio assets out there. Now, is there more risk with that said? Absolutely. I don't know of a single cryptocurrency out there in which has a significant risk to reward ratio without more risk. I just want to throw that out there. If you're wanting not much risk in your particular digital asset, you need to look more into Filecoin. And I do hold Filecoin, and I've done well in that, right? So my thing is, I don't make this a Filecoin video, but with Filecoin, I've always called it like the Coca-Cola crypto. Why would I state that? For the same reasons of why, for instance, people invest in Coca-Cola stock. It has the highest return on investment with the lowest risk, right? And it's like Filecoin, Coca-Cola crypto. But at the same time, I'm looking at this, right? Yeah, I made 3K in 3 days with, for instance, Filecoin. I think it's a great short-term hold. I think it's a great long-term hold. And if Filecoin goes to previous all-time highs, which I think it will, for me, that's going to be a little over $250,000. And that's not bad. That's better than a kick in the butt, to say the least. But it's still not going to be generational wealth. With Jasmy, on the other hand, that is going to be generational wealth for me, depending on how long I hold this asset, and especially at bottom out prices that I still feel as though that we are basically at, right? Anything under a penny for this is still extremely undervalued. All right, let's jump into the next part of this outline. We're going to get some of the other good stuff here in a bit. Shout outs again to Yanoslav, Mentalect, Brian, right? You could be followed at WC3068. You guys are all very well appreciated in this community, this Jasmy Army or Jasmy Navy or Jasmy Armed Forces, right? All right. Back to Mentalect. All right, this is going to make sense on this outline. As whales continue buying millions in Jasmy despite Binance FUD, and you better believe it was FUD, ask yourself a question. What do whales know that you don't know? Man, hit the nail on the head, right? Like even this guy. Yeah, I know why I buy it and so on. But, that's the way I look at it. What do they know that we don't know? Well, there's some things going on, right? So again, shout out to Mentalect. Binance crashed Jasmy's price 3 days ago by threatening to delist Jasmy. And by the way, follow Mentalect at Mentalect, just like how it's spelled. But yeah, threatening to delist Jasmy, but later we learned that Binance Simple Earn may offer Jasmy staking at an estimated 5.49%. Now, guess what? That increased. This doesn't make any sense. And shout out to this next guy, who's Mr. Dip Metaverse. You should be following him. He does Twitter Spaces. I got to listen on a good portion of the last one, not the whole thing. I think I listened about maybe 20 or 30 minutes. obviously he was hosting. I think we had co-host of Jesse of KIR Finance and so on. Shout out to Jesse, right? Great community leaders that are doing big things for us in this community. Well, Dip mentions Jasmy staking reward is much higher now, right? It went from 5.99% reported from Menelect to, for instance, not picture 12.3%, which is now picture below. Interesting, right? Like, why would you put Jasmy in the innovation zone, and then offer like staking that keeps increasing literally daily? That to me doesn't make any sense. But again, if you're whaling into some of this stuff, well, you need a platform that you can maybe stake some of this for a decent yield. 12.3%, that's pretty darn significant. Says, I have no thoughts or insights. I figure just let, international community know about this. Right. Well, my thoughts and insights are this is interesting. And you better believe whale investors are doing something. Dip also did report a while back about how, there was a lot of accumulation, right? Like big time whale investors. Remember, we reported, I think, on a previous video, if not the previous video, the one before that, about how there's an ETH whale. He ranks 7th on Etherscan, 7th, and he accumulated a whole bunch of Jasmy. I mean, a ton. So that's definitely worth pointing out. All right. I'm going to show you guys this a little bit more in regards to this outline, because, some of you guys are kind of down in the dumps about what's going on. But the main focus I want you to have for this is whale accumulation and what that basically means and so on. For me personally, excuse me, I'm so sorry. For me personally, this means that we are in an accumulation phase. I have said this numerous times. I think this now would be Bull Run Thesis Part 8, and I'm including it for the Jasmy outline instead of doing a separate video, because I thought, you know what, this is going to tie things in really, really well. So since late last year, I have been, I guess you could say lecturing on, both on the live show, also doing in recorded video format, like what you guys are viewing right now, in regards to the bull run thesis, or these 4-year cycles, I should say. And for the longest time, a lot of people feel as though I was like completely wrong about this. And it doesn't matter if I'm wrong and people right and whatnot, right? I just share info and people take it as they will. But, there is enough support to show that we are going to make a run towards that 30K again. And that will help Jasmy 100%. Why is that? Well, like we reported also before, right? For the last month or so. When Bitcoin has these huge run-ups, like we saw over 31K at one particular point within the last month, and also Ethereum has a run-up, Jasmy runs a correlation to that quite often. Now, we also understand it will still not only be reflective upon that, but, there's obviously other positive catalysts that will, help with price action. So it states BTC making a run towards $30,000 again. The strength is being driven by a trio of tailwinds. And this is from, again, a premium service that I pay for annually called Investor Place. So, this is their crypto side of things. They have a whole, bunch of different services, stocks and so on, but I have their crypto related services. It says continued escalation in the regional banking crisis, right? There's some of the, trio tailwinds, a dovish evolution in Fed policy towards a pause, a general return to risk on sentiment in financial markets. But it states, we importantly expect all 3 tailwinds to persist for the balance of the year, and therefore believe cryptos will stay in what is referred to as rally mode. Now, you may be wondering, rally mode, like, what does that entail in regards to rally mode? Well, let's jump into some of these things. On the first point, it has become abundantly clear that, and let me fix this chair for a second. Sorry about that. That the regional banks are in a crisis, and it's basically not over. And that dozens of regional banks may fail when all is said and done. This past week or so, we saw the near failure of 2 more regionals. And as we know, that was First Republic and, of course, Pac West. If you haven't been following this, it's okay. If anything, this is going to kind of catch you up on what's going on. In the past 2 months, 4 major regional banks have now either failed or nearly failed. Here's a report from the S&P Regional Banking ETF, KRE price percentage change. And that basically went down about 34.75%, at the start of May of 2023 and so on. It says cryptos were invented as a replacement to banks. If you don't think so, think about, for instance, the original Satoshi white paper, right? A lot of people feel as though that, Bitcoin was created as a hedge against inflation, but in reality, it was a hedge against money printing. Theoretically, when banks fail and consumer confidence in the US banking system wanes, that should boost cryptos. We are seeing that happen right now. Again, we think more regional banks will collapse before this saga is over. And, let's face it, guys, that's probably going to happen a little bit more. That's why we need to have more of that regulatory clarity. If we have, for instance, this constant example of, crypto runs side by side with stocks, if we're going to get to the point where we separate ourselves from it, we have to get that clarity, because that would create basically what everybody wants to see in crypto, and that is supply and demand. You have to have something that separates crypto from stocks by creating that demand. What will be that demand? That demand is definitely, for instance, what? It is to have that clarity. So, we want institutional money to come in. We saw what was going on with Jasmy at that particular institutional, conference in Tokyo. But it says again, we think many more regional banks will collapse before the saga is over. We think that crypto will continue to benefit from the regional banking crisis in the coming months. But at the same time, we learned this week that the Fed is going to pause its rate hiking campaign in June, and that's coming up here soon. A lot of things coming up here soon when it comes to June. June 1st, roughly in that time frame, we're going to have the whole thing with DFFT. And if you haven't seen the previous other Jasmy video, definitely look into that. It explains a real long, deep dive with full detail on DFFT. That is the path forward for really big things, in my opinion. Okay? I don't want to make another outline on this. I would just say make sure you watch that video. I have to watch it all at once, but if anything, it's going to give you a broader perspective. Excuse me. It says, of course, they didn't explicitly say that on Wednesday they can't, but they did do everything short of explicitly saying. They coughed, winked, nudged, right? All this stuff. There's a lot of rhetoric. But the Fed pause basically is here. How so? Check this out, right? It says we pointed this out before that, things are looking bullish for cryptos, even with some of the pullback. Some people are going to say, how does it look bullish, Max? Like, things are pulling back. You got to keep in mind, there's a lot of times that you'll have retracement and pullback to get to what? Blast off. So, the last Fed pause, are you aware of this? Right? It happened in early 2019, meaningfully accelerated the third crypto boom cycle. In my opinion, we're going into a fourth boom cycle here soon. We believe this Fed pause in mid 2022 will meaningfully accelerate the fourth crypto boom cycle. Now, you may be wondering, like, can you give me some examples? Here are some of those particular examples. You saw what happened in light of, what happened with the Fed pause, right? Back when basically Bitcoin hit bottom, and then notice what happened after that Fed pause. Like it shows right here, 2019, boom, Bitcoin surged, and boy, did it ever surge, right? Then let's fast forward to what happened recently. We came out of 2022, crypto winter, right? People just call it bear market, whatever you want to call it, right? I still call it crypto winter. Well, I think we're going to be hitting a Fed pause here soon, and that's going to be real key, guys. We got to, keep in mind some of these particular dates and so on. It's going to be absolutely huge if we get some of these pauses. Now, don't get me wrong. I could be wrong, and maybe it doesn't happen, and things get delayed. But there's enough evidence through what, guys? Data to support that. Look what was mentioned at Bitcoin bottom. When was Bitcoin bottom? Well, if you haven't been following this, I'll tell you when Bitcoin bottom was. It's not based on opinions. It's based on numbers, based on data. As the saying goes, and shout out to Mike Cornwell once again, numbers don't have emotions. Data does not have emotions. Bottom for Bitcoin, I hate to tell some of these guys this, was not 12K. You know how many times you hear people saying, oh, no, this is going to go to 12K? You have data to support that? No, you do not. I don't mean no disrespect, but you do not. So my thing is, I go by actual numbers, actual data, and so on. I follow these 4-year cycles. Why do I do that? Because at the end of the day, I don't want to just listen to even a person like myself, right? I don't want to listen to people like that. I want to listen to people who have, for instance, sorry, it's like a little gnat that flew in because, it's approaching summertime here in Phoenix before, the rest of the world gets summer. We get it before everybody. But yeah, that's my thing. I want to see actual data. So this shows, and I mentioned this before on the live show, like I said, bottom for Bitcoin happened right at the time of FTX. Okay. And we saw Bitcoin as in BTC touch about 12,008, 12,009. It just barely touched it. Okay. So that was the true bottom. Notice what it mentions here. The Fed pause. Yeah, the Fed pause going forward. Why is that significant? Let's get a little bit more into this outline. So investors are generally growing more risk seeking in 2023, right? People are recognizing that, whether it's, Ripple's XRP, Jasmy, and so on. Which ones can we get into that has a high risk to reward, or, the best risk to reward ratio for the digital asset? That's why you see so many people from the XRP army. Have you noticed that? They're also invested in Jasmy. I'm not making that up. You can look it up for yourself. So inflation is falling despite popular opinion. It may not feel like it in your neck of the woods, right? Especially here in my neck of the woods in Phoenix, but Phoenix is consistently, higher when it comes to some prices, especially when it comes to gas. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I had to fill up my gas tank and they took me to cleaners. So the Fed has grown more dovish. The economy is proving resilient. Those macroeconomic factors have turned investors fearful of the Fed walking the economy into a recession. And don't get me wrong, these things could very well happen. Some people are pointing out like, hey, Max, forget the whole 4-year boom cycles and so on, man. This is what's going on. Okay, I get that. But remember, we were also what? We were in a recession before many years ago. And how about this? Remember what happened in 2021? We were still at the height of what, guys? The whole thing of the pandemic, and everybody was just like doom and gloom. And guess what happened? Oh my gosh, crypto boomed. And I was fortunate enough to experience my first bull run, and I turned 10K into 120K. And I've been bit by the crypto bug ever since. And that's why I'm this crazy guy who comes on camera and talks about crypto every day on either a live show or a recorded video. I'm telling you flat out, if you haven't been bit by the crypto bug, and you hold long enough, when this thing takes off in a real true bull market and things go to all-time highs, you too will be talking about all this stuff all the time as well. It's just what comes with the territory. All right. Risk on sentiments have returned to markets. This is best captured by the strong performance of technology and growth stocks in 2023. This is bullish, though, for cryptos. Why is that, Max? Well, because over the past several quarters, Bitcoin has just acted like a major tech stock. The price trajectory of the NASDAQ and Bitcoin mirror each other going back to 2021. How so? Well, here's some of that proof. Data does not have emotions. Numbers do not have emotions. What has emotions is just popular opinion of two narratives. If we're going into, various different shows on, YouTube and so on, where there's degen shows and so on, and you're hearing a guy who, or people in the comments saying, oh, this is all going to crash to 12K. How many times have we heard that? Right? Do they have anything to back that up? No, they do not. This is why I recommend people taking more of a deeper dive into some of just that, the analytics, the data, and so on. At the end of the day, the reason why I follow Investor Place and know I'm not paid by them and so on is because, in my opinion, about 90% of the time, they have hit it right. There's some things I don't agree with them on this, and there was a recent report posted by their team, not, of course, from Luke Lango or Charlie Shrem, the two top dogs, but there was an editor who made an article a few days ago in regards to, like, he saw that this thing was going to tank even more. Hey, that might be like the 10% of the time, but I think they just don't get it right. And he might not be the type of guy who knows about all the innovation of Jasmy. But the key thing here is look at this chart. The chart does not lie. You do see this particular how NASDAQ and Bitcoin mirror each other dating back to 2021. So that's worth pointing out as well. Now, what about this risk sentiments? Well, like it says, it's going to improve over the next several months. Therefore, they believe we will get a rising tide lifts, which will lift all boats situation in financial markets. We think the fastest rising boat in that tide will be what, guys? It'll be cryptos. I've seen it's like just unbelievable stuff happen, basically late 2021, where I have an entry point early in 2021, and then I saw the wave rise, and it's just an exciting time. You know, Shout out to people who came long before me and experienced multiple bull cycles or boom cycles and so on. And for a lot of you guys, you mentioned even on our live show, you have not experienced that bull cycle yet, right? Or the boom cycle. But guess what? Know what you have, know why you hold it. You'll get there too. It says overall, we are very optimistic about the outlook for cryptos. The fundamental factors which most strongly influence crypto prices are meaningfully improving and project to keep improving for the foreseeable future. This supports further strength in crypto prices. Excuse me. The technicals also support further strength, with Bitcoin continually growing support exactly where it needs to show support to preserve the 2023 technical uptrend. Let's take a look at some of this uptrend right here. This is why I blew it up for you guys. So you can clearly see that trajectory, right? And even mentions it, well past, 40,000 and so on. But Bitcoin continues to show technical support where it needs to show technical support. This rally has legs. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Does this thing really have legs? And can it have more momentum to have a bigger buildup upon some of those legs? I think so. Like it says right here, consequently, we continue to emphasize a quote, buy the dip strategy to the crypto markets in 2023 with dip buying efforts focused on the cryptos in our portfolio. And I thought I would report that to you guys because you know what? At the end of the day, it is good stuff. Now, there's a little bit more in regards to this outline because of what happened recently. And I want to share this with you as well. So, this was today's or yesterday's recent report. Sorry, again, a little bit problem with my allergies lately. Weekly update. Regulation fears create overhang on crypto. So basically, I show the outline that's going to support how we're going to get back to 30,000 and so on. But we do have a little bit of this overhang. So like I said, it was a shockingly poor week for cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and so on. We had some drops, right? We also had some drops, for instance, with Jasmy, on top of the bad news, right? That kind of accelerates. So again, as we know, the reason why I'm pointing this out, I share some of the positive. I need to point out some of the negative things that also affected the factor. So there's two main things that affected some of the factor for Jasmy. Obviously, the Binance bad news, right? And combination of how it runs in correlation with Bitcoin and Ethereum, that amplified it, right? Big time. So yeah, it was shocking poor week for cryptos with BTC dropping 7%, ETH also shedding 5%, and various other altcoins, like I mentioned, dropping about 10%. Here's the thing, right? We view the recent weakness as interesting, but not thesis breaking. Like, right, I'm not breaking my bull run thesis. Part 8 with you guys. I think we're at part 8. When it comes to this thesis I've had for a long time, in conjunction with, for instance, investor plays. So I will share this with you guys and then we'll try to wrap things up. But it's important to take a look into this, right? Because it gives you a broader perspective on all of it. It says, we ultimately believe this is a buying opportunity and cryptos will continue to soar in the fourth boom cycle going into 2024, 2025. I mean, let's face it, right? There's money to be made in 2023, don't get me wrong. But like people mentioned, the real money is going to be 2024, especially 2025. I'm thinking like by 2025, maybe towards the end, going to 2026, for Jasmy holders, that's going to be big, right? Like we should have a lot more adoption. The implementation period will go into, right, people actually buying the products and then also using the products. That's the main key thing. It says, going back to the top of this issue, though, we use the word shocking for a good reason. Ever since COVID struck in 2020, crypto had developed a very strong and positive correlation with tech stocks. We mentioned that. When tech stocks rally, cryptos rally, right? So we get that. The relationship has become more pronounced more than ever in the past 12 months. The market has started treating both tech stocks and cryptos similar, like a similar like, right? They consider it like a similar risk, if you will. This is where some people have the debate of like, is crypto ever going to, like I mentioned before, break away from stocks? Therefore, the past year, the pattern has been that when inflation drops, the rate hike outlook becomes more dovish, both techs and cryptos rally. That pattern has broken over the past, 2 or 3 weeks, and we got to point that out. So, since late April, if you didn't know about this already, it states that they received a series of economic reports which have strongly signaled falling inflationary pressures, highlighted by the weaker than expected April Consumer Price Index and Producer Price Index reports released this week. As those weak inflation reports have hit the tape, the futures market has shifted to pricing in nearly, listen to this, 100% odds of a Fed pause in June and a 50% chance of a rate cut in July. This is why I wanted to continue, with this outline and show you this. I get a little bit of criticism about, oh, Max, all your darn, um, all your videos are like deep dives and so on. Well, I get more positive feedback than I do in regards to negative. So as you guys saw on the previous segment of this outline, you saw where it mentioned specifically how significant that Fed pause is, because that Fed pause means, wow, the next key thing, which in my opinion is the markup phase. So I want you guys to understand this. In my opinion, and I have evidence to show this, I've shown this before, we are in what is referred to as the crypto accumulation phase. I do not want to be accumulating crypto in the next phase. What is the next phase? It's the markup phase, and we'll show you some examples of what exactly that is, just in case you're a newcomer and you haven't watched some of the previous videos of the past many months. By the way, welcome. Hopefully we have earned a subscription from you, but if you choose not to, that's okay. We do appreciate anybody who watches our content or listens to our content. We have quite a few truck drivers that listen to our content. So I want to state this, right? That is key. That is crucial. Shifting to nearly, 100% odds of a Fed pause. Wow. That excites me. I'm not trying to hype things up too much. My thing is this: research and data speaks for itself. That's where the real hype is. That should get you excited, to say the least, right? And in June, like it says, a 50% chance of a rate cut in July. Inflation has dropped and the rate high outlook has become more dovish. Did you know that tech stocks have responded exactly as you expect? They rallied. The NASDAQ sits at fresh 2023 highs. How so? Well, we're going to show you some examples here, but it says cryptos have not rallied. They dropped. They've diverged from tech stocks in a bearish manner. And like it mentions, while we're on that excitement, we got to come back to like recognizing what's going on with the market. Bearish diversions forming in cryptos as tech stock rally leaves BTC behind. All right. Now it sounds like, Max, you're going back and forth here. I mean, you just gave me some great news. And then we got this. What are you doing, my friend? Let's get into that. It's okay. The question of the week: why have cryptos diverged from tech stocks? That's a great question. There is no clear answer, but their theory, according to Investor Place, is that the current bearish crypto divergence has to do with regulatory fears. And there's a lot of regulatory fears. Now, here's the key thing. Why did I tie this into Jasmy? The reason why I tied this whole thing into Jasmy is because, for one, like I mentioned, what you saw with the outline as far as Bitcoin and Ethereum move along, or Jasmy moves along with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But the difference when it comes to regulatory fears is that, again, Japan is a totally different mindset of where they're going, right? So DFFT coming up here soon. And guys, I'm telling you flat out, I know that video is the deepest of deepest dives, right? Where, in the thumbnail, it has the guy pointing the finger and it says, Jasmy, June 1st, massive news. It is massive news. And that's why we did a whole big, long, outline for you guys to give you a broader perspective. You're going to see, for instance, some interviews. And those things are very, very powerful because for Japan, they are the pathway forward when it comes to that regulatory clarity. So to me, that country, they're past the fears. They're embracing crypto. How so? Again, if you're a newcomer, they've had a Web3 white paper, right? And they also are having, for instance, capital gains. Those taxes are going to be cut by 20% over there. How about this for size? By the end of this year, we're supposed to have the beginning, not all right? I haven't got clarification on that. Once I do, I'll give you guys an update. But we should get the beginning of a 70% lockup in Q4 2023 for Jasmy. That's huge. Because if we don't have that lockup, there's no way we're going to achieve some of this market cap that we're all looking forward to in the future for Jasmy. So I want to throw that out there as well. So understand this. Here in the United States, other places in the world, we have that regulatory fears. Yes, there's still regulatory fear in Japan, but it's a different situation. So let's just keep that in mind. But like it shows here, regulatory picture for cryptos in the US has become increasingly hazy over the past few weeks. Comprehensive federal crypto legislation continues to prove elusive, probably because they can't agree on anything in Washington, D.C. But you got to keep in mind, this is Jasmy. This is not Washington, D.C. One thing everyone everywhere can agree on these days is that crypto industry does need some form of regulation, and it's true. The way I look at it is, all right, while they're still trying to figure this all out, I'm going to continue to accumulate more XRP, XLM, XDC, Quant, and so on, right? HBAR, LCX, you name it. So, therefore, in the absence of federal legislation, states are stepping up the plate. States from California and Florida are trying to craft their own crypto legislation. And you recently saw, for instance, the announcement from the governor of Florida stating that they too are banning CBDCs, and also in Texas and so on. All right, here's the problem. They don't know what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing, right? Let's face it. That is uncharted territory. There is no guide, no rule book, no president, or status quo. The result is that every state is offering wildly different legislation. Investors have no idea what most likely is going to be turned into comprehensive federal legislation. So also understand this, right? Whether it's Wyoming, which is really crypto friendly, or Texas and so on, right? You have the states that are very anti-crypto, like New York. That's why it says right New York right here and so on. So in the United States, we're the United States, but like some people point out, it doesn't feel like we're too united. In Japan, when it comes to crypto and embracing blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, they are pretty much united for that. How so? They understand that if they want to achieve the concept of smart cities and data democratization and so on, that they have to be united on one clear path forward. And that is, this unification of a country embracing blockchain technology. We don't have that here in the United States. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. New York and New Jersey just want to crack down on crypto fraud by preventing people who create crypto assets from also owning crypto platforms and stopping crypto firms from borrowing or lending investor assets. Very true. All right, what about Florida? All right, and we just mentioned Florida. Meanwhile, in regards to Florida, they want to outright ban CBDCs, like I mentioned before. California is trying to create a legal framework for the regulation and decentralized autonomous organizations. So, I mean, it's just so mixed all over the spectrum for the United States. Like I mentioned a little bit about Texas and so on. Everyone is working towards the same goal, creating better protection for consumers in the crypto industry. No one is going about it the same way. And that is very, very true. And that creates a ton of confusion for investors. All right. So for investors. But what about, again, another side of the world where things are different? Now, am I too far off on this? I don't think so. Because even in, for instance, Hong Kong, it doesn't seem like there's confusion there. They're embracing crypto, as we know. How about, other places like South Korea? Same case. Singapore, same case. So that region totally gets it. It's not just Japan. And as a result, you have seen, for instance, Hara of Jasmy goes to Hong Kong and so on. I wouldn't be surprised if, there would be some other areas he goes to. Maybe it is Singapore and so on. But the key thing is recognizing what we have and why we hold it. It's not just because, it's an insanely cheap cryptocurrency. Yeah, that helps. But it's because this region of the world gets it, at least in my opinion. When it comes to the crypto regulatory environment these days, investors have a million questions and zero answers. This is forcing market makers to flee the industry, right? People are going to get scared. You saw some people even who hold Jasmy, and no offense or disrespect towards them, what did? They fled they decided, hey, I'm out of Jasmy. I'm not, I got some bad news about this whole thing. And I'm out, right? And, I'm not making fun. People got to do what they got to do. We never understand a person's situation. Everyone has a different situation when it comes to these particular holdings of their digital assets. It says this past week, both Jane Street Group and Jump Crypto stopped trading digital assets in the US. They follow a series of other firms that have either slowed or altogether stopped proving, or excuse me, proving liquidity into the crypto markets. I think that's a typo. Providing. All right. In short, the crypto industry is currently suffering from a lack of regulatory clarity. I mean, no kidding, right? Which is leading to a lack of investor confidence and a lack of market liquidity. That's why cryptos have bearishly diverged from stocks over the past few weeks. And like they said, they don't expect the bearish divergence to last. And I don't expect it to last either, to be honest. If anything, I'm recognizing these opportunities. I mean, like there's another one, and I don't know if this guy's gonna be watching this whole thing all the way through. Shout out to XXI Gaming, a longtime regular. I've stated, on Stratos, I think that's a great opportunity as well. Um, and I said if it breaks down back into like the 40s, the 40-cent range, I might pick up a bag of that. Right, my goal is 43 cents, and I'm continuing to watch that one as well. It says we actually expect bearish divergence to end very soon, and here's some of the reasons. And this is why I want to share some of this with you guys. So we will get some clarity on regulatory issues by summer. You see a lot of that happening as we speak. Again, I know I'm pounding this home a lot. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening, especially when it comes to Japan, as we know, right? Right in June. Again, this is, it says by summer. You can even throw quant into some of that mix because of what they're doing, right? In regards to like for instance LackChain. This is not quant video, I get it, right? It says the Fed pause in June will be an overwhelmingly positive catalyst. You better believe it. Like we mentioned before, I mean close to 100% chance of that pause. That's huge, absolutely huge. The technicals imply we are at a short-term bottom. Recognize the bottom. Some of you guys already are doing just that. So shout out to you guys. Some of you guys have mentioned that you have well over 1,000,000 Jasmy. My God. I mean, those are some of my own personal goals. And some of us can't necessarily get to those goals. And whatever the case be, that's okay. This is not, as I always say, like I hate to use this term, but like a pissing contest. At the first point, we would like to point out that there has been a lack of clarity on the regulatory front in the crypto industry for years now. This is nothing new, but it did just start to become a problem in late April. Right around the same time, everyone started paying attention to and worrying about the debt ceiling. And I couldn't agree even more with that, too, because you know what? A lot of people are worrying about the debt ceiling, right? So legislators, if you didn't, or if you weren't aware of this, are still at a impasse with respect to the debt ceiling. But we have 99% confidence that a deal will get worked out. They're going to do that. They don't have any solution when it comes to the debt ceiling. Let's face it, guys, both Democrats and Republicans, they do not have a solution. Their solution is to take literally a Band-Aid and patch things up. And it's just a temporary fix. And as a result, we keep going more and more into debt. We're about $32 trillion in debt. And it's unbelievable. I saw a guy do a video recently, in person at I forgot which legislative office it was, but he, maybe you guys saw it too. He basically mentions that since the birth of Jesus Christ, that uh, the debt far surpasses like every single living person who ever lived from the time of Jesus' birth to present. It's something that like it's like how are we going to realistically ever pay that off? That's why, of course, why I hold like Stellar, why I hold Ripple's XRP, right? To me, that's the answer towards paying off the debt. They take on the debt. That's another story. I would highly advise people to take more of their own research into that. That's not financial advice, but learn more about ODL, right? On demand liquidity. Okay. So, what about this whole thing in regards to taking on this debt? Well, like it says right here, we expect a deal to be reached on the debt ceiling by June, which will free up legislators to put up more focus on crypto regulation, which will inject clarity into the crypto regulation situation. And you have seen the ball starting to move in the right direction in regards to that. I mean, I don't want to keep mentioning Stellar and so on, but you saw Danielle Dixon, she was talking about it. You even saw, for instance, Brian Doherty of BSV, right? He even got to meet In New York State Senate, which they're very anti-crypto in regards to the path forward for regulatory clarity. You saw Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, right? So all these big players are coming together to get things going when it comes to this regulatory clarity. How about this? Meanwhile, the odds of a Fed pause in June, by June, I should say, have increased above 90%. Like we showed you the other example, they were saying, 100%. They're still at this positive sentiment that it's going to be 90 to 100%, right? That's a given. And they're extensively covered, how a Fed pause could provide a huge upside catalyst. Yeah, I mean, shout out to Investor Place. They're killing it with this information. But I want to share it to our community. We imagine that a catalyst will be so positive that it will overwhelm any remaining negativity for regulatory uncertainty. Again, kind of like what I showed you guys before on the previous example that you saw earlier. All right, here it is once again. All right, we get that Fed pause and it's absolute blast off. Lastly, this technically looks like a short-term bottom for Bitcoin, and I do agree, it does look to be the case. That's why we point some of these things out. Now, I understand we're at roughly around 26, 27,000 for Bitcoin. That level, of course, has served as a local bottom twice before, while BTC has been in this consolidation range between 27K and 31K. At the same time, Bitcoin has been struck in that trading range for about 2 months. Now, people are going to complain about that, right? Let's be honest. But if you have been following crypto and been in this game for at least 2 years or more, you will have come to the conclusion that that is a really good thing. How is that a good thing? Because consolidation strengthens the asset. And if you have too much of sideways consolidation, what happens is it creates what is referred to as a pressure cooker effect, right? In layman's terms, like I've always mentioned before, you're gonna take like a cauldron or like a steamer, right? Like a big old pot, and then you're gonna fill that and keep filling it up and filling it up and filling it up. Eventually, you cannot, you're not gonna be able to put enough pressure on it, and it's gonna explode. Even like just that, like a pressure cooker to a sense. All right. So this trading range earlier this year, before it popped to 27 plus prices, we did see it pop. We saw it pop off to 31. In other words, there seems to be the cycle forming basically for Bitcoin, and I do agree with this statement. Consolidating for 2 months, then soaring for a month, and consolidating for 2 months, then soaring for a month. Lather, rinse, repeat. I agree. This would be very ideal technical time for BTC to bottom. And again, a reiteration of what we showed before. Bitcoin short-term technicals are rolling over. BTC needs to show support at current levels and bounce soon to confirm the technical uptrend. I think we get confirmation and blast off, especially when we get the Fed pause. So the bottom line, Fed pause all the way. All right. So in closing, here soon, overall, we fully acknowledge the shocking relative weakness in cryptos over the past few weeks, but we believe it is due to regulatory headwinds that will pass. Once they do pass, we think the whole crypto market will charge up for another 20+%. I do feel as though that will happen in regards to Jasmy as well. We're at roughly 0.004748 in that range. So by the time you guys maybe see this video, we might be at the fives, a 20% increase. Again, you can come back to this and see how well it aged. I might be wrong, I might be right. But the key thing is, it's not about these short-term gains. It's about holding this in light of all the doom and gloom, in my opinion. So, their strategy in crypto markets remains to be selected, and that is basically buy dips. And that's the way I look at it too. I'm buying these dips. So, before we completely close out, I did want to show you guys this. And I did retweet this. This is from Crypto Rover. And then again, after this, we'll really wrap things up, because I know this has become quite the deep dive. It says the bear market is over. I totally agree with this guy that the bear market's over. I want to show you some key things from this outline. Let's blow this up just a tad bit more. So as you can see right here, and he does a really good job highlighting some of this. Look what happened 2015, right? We saw a bottom with that, right? Then, for instance, look what we saw with 2019, right? Then look what we are seeing right now, okay? In 2023. And you may be thinking, well, I'm not with you, Max. I mean, this just shows a graph. I mean, anybody could do this. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Let's introduce something to you. The 4 phases of the crypto market. So understand, and let's just draw a focus real quick. We'll jump back. I'm sorry. Look where we're at in 2023. To me personally, this is what I refer to as the crypto accumulation phase. Okay, we are still in that phase. All right, that's why I want to load up more, and I did. I bought my third bag of Jasmy. All right, I want to load up more on some of these assets, whether it is Jasmy or XRP or some of these other ones. Right, I still want to load up on during the accumulation phase. Why is that? Because of this. At the end of the day, you don't want to load up when it's a markup phase, right? So if you understand the whole concept of these 4-year boom cycles, you will draw the conclusion that, oh my God, yeah, I don't want to load up during a markup phase, because if I load up on a markup phase, I could get wrecked, right? You don't want to be at the top of that mountain. I mean, you might get lucky. There's still opportunity, don't get me wrong, as you can see here. But as far as buying the bottom, the accumulation phase is definitely part of the bottom. Like, you might not get the bottom of the bottom every single time, right? We know that you won't get the bottom of the bottom every single time, but it's still approaching or near some of those bottoms. And Jasmy is the perfect example of bottoms. So, we were at 0.00, 28, 27, maybe 2829, but slightly under 0.003. We almost touched 0.008, right? So we would have only been about 2/10 away of a penny for Jasmy, right? And of course, before the whole thing with Binance happened, we were really close to that. So there was definitely things to recognize. But still, guys, well under a penny is still a buy for Jasmy. That's the way I look at it. And we are very close to the bottoms. We should have some takeoff happening. So even if Jasmy didn't do necessarily anything, which are obviously they're going to do some stuff. I mean, we're going to have some other things coming up here soon. Hara's going to that next particular event, and in another video we'll try to cover that. But again, guys, the whole thing is know what you have, know why you hold it. The research speaks for itself, and so on. This is the accumulation phase. You may not agree with me on that, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree, but I believe that we truly are in this accumulation phase. Next phase is markup. That is the most exciting phase, in my opinion. Holding these assets like Jasmy and so on to get to this point of that markup. So glad to share it with you guys. And if anything, that's it. So thanks again for watching today's deep dive in regards to Jasmy, and also, let's face it, what's going on with these 4-year cycles to get into some of the real good juicy stuff for all-time highs and so on. So thanks again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check us out every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, for a live show for Crypto Talk Now. On behalf of myself, Mr. Larry, and the rest of the CTN Network crew, and also our community that shows up every night, my name is Max. We'll see you on the next one.